Normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
This is the big story. It actually is pretty interesting. Donald Trump greeted by cheers upon arrival at UFC 295 in New York City. It wasn't just Donald Trump. It was Tucker Carlson and Kid Rock. And I must stress this for you all again. In New York City, probably, what is this? The deepest blue can be in this country? Well, no, that's not fair. I mean, I guess Portland, maybe.
Well, and they did flip a city council seat last week, city council seat in the Bronx.
Wait, to Republican?
Yeah. And there was another flip, I think, in Long Island.
Wow, this is getting crazy.
New Yorkers are getting pissed. They're tired of all this garbage.
I think seeing Donald Trump get massive cheers in New York City should be, as soon as I see this, I'm like, all the polls that are claiming Trump's within a point or two above Joe Biden, they're wrong. He's got to be higher than that. You look, I know we can all say that UFC fighters are based, and so the fans are probably more, right-leaning, whatever. I don't believe that. The people I know who are watching fights, they're just regular people. UFC is a mainstream popular sport, and Donald Trump shows up in New York City to Madison Square Garden, and the crowd goes nuts. I think it's fair to say Joe Biden can't win. But I also think everyone listening to this show already knows it's not going to be Joe Biden anyway, right?
Well, and these are probably a lot of people from New Jersey also. There's like New Jersey and New York in the crowd.
Yeah, but it's all blue. It's all
No,
Democrat.
it's awesome. Yeah, I think it's great. Did you see Bill Burr's wife was flipping?
Oh,
on?
yeah.
That was great too.
Yeah, she flipped off Trump.
She flipped off Trump from
See,
behind.
it's New York. It's not all love for Trump, I guess.
Yeah.
People express.
But so what's our prescription here, or what's our prediction is probably the better way to put it. It's Donald Trump in New York City getting thunderous applause with Tucker Carlson. Okay, I'm just right there. I mean, Tucker Carlson's walking through Madison Square Garden, everyone's screaming and cheering. Okay, it's not a good sign for Joe Biden in 2024 and the rest of the Democrats. I think in in Kentucky, the last election last week, the only thing Democrats won was the governor's race, and it was super close.
And it was an incumbent, so I mean,
right. Incumbent advantage, and then the rest of all these other positions ended up going to Republicans. So it is looking like, at least right now, based on what we saw last week, and a lot of people are saying it was really bad for Republicans, but I think what we're seeing right now in New York City, you mentioned them flipping a seat. I don't see how Democrats can win unless they radically shift their strategy right now.
What about all of the wins that we saw last week? Like in Ohio, they had a sweeping abortion law that was like a constitutional amendment, and then a number of other places.
Those are wins for Democrats.
Yeah, we saw a lot of Democrat wins last week.
They legalized weed in Ohio.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake Republicans are making. Who was talking about this? I don't know. Maybe Mike Cernovich was tweeting about it. Abortion is generally popular in the United States to the point where people don't actually care the full extent of what's being legalized. The pro-life position is not going to win out.
Yeah, it's something that if you want to actually make a pro-life change, you've got to somehow get the population to follow you for other reasons, and then kind of subconsciously get them to become pro-life. But screaming it is not going to make people.
This is why I think it's important to, like, if you're pro-life, it makes more sense to advocate against abortion than to advocate for abortion to be illegal. Yeah. Like, they're not the same thing. Abortion can be legal and you can encourage people not to do it.
Right. Showing the morality of it, I think. Yeah. Watching the baby get dismembered in the womb as it's being pulled out.
Or just offering more options for moms. Like, you can be a mom. It's okay. You know?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was mentioning how he bought something. Well, I don't want to give out too many details because it's this other dude's private life. But he was trying to help a local kid with some extracurricular activities, and this family was not very well off. So he said, "Let me help you out and buy you some stuff to help your kids." And when he said this, a bunch of people started calling him a creepo and a pedo for helping this little girl with like her school stuff. And he was like, "Man, I felt so bad. I was like, what did I do something wrong? Like, why are people yelling at me? Like, posting online, like, hey, I just, was buying this stuff for this family." And they attacked him for it. And I'm like, it is really funny that there's a cultural narrative for guys. Like, we have all these stories where a guy's sitting on an airplane, and then it's like he'll be sitting next to a kid, and the flight attendant comes up and says, "You have to move because you're a man sitting next to a child." And then we've had these for years. And then for women, you have these stories where it's like, oh, don't have a family. It's bad for the environment, or you're not going to have fun, or you're going to regret it. It's like, man, they really don't want people having kids.
No, they don't. And they don't want people around kids. They just want to get rid of kids entirely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I guess. But at any rate, I don't know. Where are we at?
I got a prediction on this. Gavin Newsom comes in on a chariot of fire, and everyone's like, why is this guy? But then the media pushes him so hard for a year, and they're like, Trump bad, Newsom good, and you get a bunch of people behind it. And then unless we have election integrity and the votes are on machines behind the scenes, I have no way to verify whether or not the votes are going to get hacked and flip 51-49. But I don't trust the process if it's done secretly on proprietary machines these days.
I just don't. I got to be honest. I don't know where we're at in terms of like. I have a general idea. Joe Biden can't win as of right now, but there's got to be some kind of insane and dramatic change that happens over the next several months in order for there to be a viable race for Democrats in 2024.
But look at Joe Biden's entire career. He's a serial liar. In the 80s, when he was running for president, he was caught plagiarizing the speech of a British politician, his whole life story. He's demented. He thought he was fighting apartheid in South Africa. He thought he was fighting for civil rights in the U.S. So he's out of touch. And I think accordingly, he's going to be out of touch enough to believe he has a chance. And I think he'll stay in the race.
Yeah, but they got to remove him, right? I mean, so there's a couple views. One is that the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, is like, why won't Joe Biden stop? We need someone else. We can't win. And so now you're seeing all the Hunter Biden stuff bubble up and the threat of impeachment and conviction. If Joe Biden doesn't leave, people think they're going to remove him by force from office.
In a speech, I think, was it today, he said President Harris.
Well, he said that like 8 times.
I know,
already.
but he says it a bunch. I think he's really just trying to get us used to it.
And they'd have to remove her too, because obviously they can't run her as well because she's so unpopular, probably less popular than he is. So the impeachment could actually have some legs if people inside his own party get behind it. But the problem is the impeachment has to do with Ukraine, and they're sensitive about that because they're so embedded in Ukraine and they don't want to admit defeat there. And the Ukraine impeachment gets to Joe Biden's corruption there and his big role in causing this whole mess.
Well, this is why I'm saying I don't know where we're at, because that's a really great point. If they move to him, if Joe Biden won't leave and they know he's going to lose. Okay, hold on, slow down. If Donald Trump wins, all their war plans are going to get screwed up. Mm-hmm. It's not like, Trump's going to just end everything overnight, but it's certainly they're not going to give them what they want. So they can't have Donald Trump, but he's the front runner for the Republicans and he's going to do really well. So then they have Joe Biden. Okay, well, if Joe Biden stays in the race, he's going to lose and they're going to get Trump. Can't have that. But if they try to remove Joe Biden using impeachment, you're right. It's Ukraine. And now, whoopsie daisy, how many other people are going to get caught up in whatever that disaster is?
They do have him, though, on the classified documents case. There is an investigation into that, which we forgot about because it gets buried. But they could pull that out. If they really wanted something to get him on, they could use that.
And if they do, then they come back and say, oh, look, we're being fair. Trump, you can't be president either.
Yeah.
I think if they go after, every time I see them talking about the Biden classified documents, I think this is just a way to get Trump because they don't care what happens to Biden and they want Trump out of the way.
Well, if you're someone inside the establishment and you hate both Biden and Trump for your own reasons, then this classified documents thing, it's like you kill 2 birds with 1 stone because you pretend like you're applying the law equally.
Yep.
You claim you're upholding justice and you get them both. So if I'm making a prediction, I think they're going to go with that. If they really
so is it going to be
Biden
Newsom versus DeSantis?
Aren't they debating soon?
They are.
Aren't they having that happen?
That's the plan, yeah.
The thing is, I don't think you can stop Trump. He's just shown to be so resilient. He freestyled his entire 2016 campaign.
Right?
He's inevitable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has
It's inevitable.
If you look at him physically, he has a terrible diet, but he just seems indestructible. He's 77 years old, so the only person who can really stop
He's always
Trump.
out there playing golf anyway.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? The only person that could stop Trump?
The only person who can stop Trump is Trump himself.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
true.
Somehow
That's true.
he hangs it up personally. But otherwise, I just don't think all these cases against him, like,
What is he facing? 700 years?
yeah, but you look at them and you go, I mean, maybe on the classified documents one, there's something. I don't know. I don't know that one too closely. But the other ones, like the racketeering case in Georgia, it seems everyone who's not a hardcore partisan Democrat understands what's going on there, I think.
With the documents.
It's all BS.
I don't think that they get him on the documents because you have Judge Cannon in Florida who has now pushed the court date back. And she said, we're not going to do this on an accelerated schedule. So that's just going to drag on for a while. I think they have a better shot of getting him on the January 6th case because they've got a gag order slapped on him already, right? And they're really going to go hard after him on that one. They have a judge who has already, with other January 6th cases, advocated for or issued sentences that are longer even than the Justice Department had asked for. I think that's where I think they're going to get him in that one, and I think they have a shot at getting him in Georgia.
How would you describe yourself politically if you would, Aaron?
Traditionally left wing.
So
And the meaning of that has changed in recent years
Right.
because now to be left wing, you have to side with neocons to support proxy wars like in Ukraine. But
Which is weird.
Yes,
It doesn't
exactly.
make sense.
where I come
Comes
from,
full circle, they say.
yeah, exactly. So I'd say traditionally left wing.
So that's why I think it's interesting because, based on your political views, where you are people calling you right wing? Have they been calling you right wing for some time?
Yeah, ever since I started opposing Russiagate, which I thought was the dumbest thing of all time. And it speaks to this issue we're talking about, this desperate effort to get Trump and also undermine any diplomacy between the U.S. and Russia by calling him a Russian asset and all the conspiracy theories that came with that. Ever since I started questioning that, I was called right wing. I was called an apologist for Trump, even though as a side, even if I didn't care about facts and being a journalist, which is when you're a journalist, you're supposed to follow the facts no matter where they lead for partisan purposes. Putting that aside, from a political point of view, I was also against it because I thought it was a big gift to Trump. Because what's a bigger gift to Trump than trying to oppose him from the sole point of view, and this really was the obsession of him being a Russian asset, like putting all your eggs into the basket of a crazy conspiracy theory. I thought it was a big gift to him and the Republicans. And so because I was opposed to that, I was accused of supporting Trump.
And then you were critical of war in Ukraine.
And then I was because one of the reasons why I hated Russiagate was because it also promoted this neocon narrative that we should not have diplomacy with Russia, that Russia is responsible for all of our problems. And it's a good thing to fight the war in Ukraine rather than resolve it with the peace accords that were on the table. That's what Trump's first impeachment was about. People forget this. He was impeached for briefly pausing some weapons to Ukraine while allegedly pressuring Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. And by the way, the case, if you looked at it, never had any actual evidence. Trump did make some dumb comments in a phone call to Zelensky, but the fundamental charge against Trump that he was like leveraging U.S. weapons to blackmail Zelensky, there was never actually any evidence for it. But what it did do was promote this Cold War narrative that we should be fighting this war with Russia. Adam Schiff on the House floor when he was leading the impeachment said that we aid Ukraine so that we can fight Russia over there. We don't have to fight Russia here. And I remember thinking, is this what being a left-winger is now? We have to support fighting a proxy war with Russia? And look where it got us. It got us into this all-out hot war over the last few years. So that's one of many reasons why I thought Russiagate was a huge scam and a big danger.
And it's weird how all of these, like, I don't know how to describe it, these weird authoritarian things align with what is described as the left today. And if you are somebody who holds left economic views but criticizes the war machine or like Adam Schiff's statements and how they've gone after Trump, you are now right wing, you are far right. They'll call you far right for simply being like, well, Trump didn't do that. Ah, we got you.
Yeah, they'll call you a Russian asset and they will look the other way or cheer on people being censored in the name of cracking down on so-called disinformation. So look at, for example, the reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop before the election. They rolled out the Russiagate playbook because some embarrassing emails from Hunter Biden's laptop emerged. And rather than let people look at the contents of the laptop and make up their own minds, they censored it in the name of fighting Russia, which was, of course, another complete scam. So that entrenched that playbook. But I don't think it's exclusive to the left. Now, because of this conflict in Gaza, you're seeing plenty of Republican politicians calling for censoring voices that support Palestinian rights. You're seeing people called anti-Semites unfairly. You're seeing college groups being shut down, like at Columbia, two groups just got shut down for their Palestinian advocacy. So I do think on both sides you have this. Certainly during the Russiagate era, it was happening a lot on the liberal side, and people like me were the target of it.
This is a crazy thing. The Israel-Palestine issue has ripped both the left and the right in half in this really weird way.
It's pretty wild.
And I think it's I don't necessarily know how this position starts, but there are these funny comics. Stone Toss is a comic where it's like a communist with like a Gilded Age oligarch, and they're both pulling the rope together, and there's a libertarian and a fascist pulling the rope together. Like, what is this? Like, what is this political debate that we're having? And so what you end up with is somehow, several years ago, people who were right-leaning or conservative in their values were moving towards pro-free speech. People who are disaffected liberals or former Democrats are now agreeing with Trump supporters. Trump was moderate. Even Steve Bannon says he's a moderate in our movement. No. Vox.com called Trump a moderate back in 2015. Yeah. And so these, like, you look at Trump's bump stock ban. He is not this far right, anarchist or libertarian or anything like these things. So what's interesting is that as long as Israel wasn't in the debate, so Protective Edge happens, 2014, and then after that, you get this period where there are people who are very critical of Israel and people who are very supportive of Israel, but as long as they're not talking about it, they're all working together. And the same is true for pro-Gaza or critical of Hamas. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.